Hello, I'm going to finish off this introductory series of videos about Freqtrade with a discussion and an exploration of the other features that you can find in this software. I will touch on a little bit of programming, some backtesting, and hyper-optimization. Let's get started. The first step that I have to do is to update all the software and rebuild the image. I've had to reinstall the OS a few times since the last video. So let's get going. So over here you can see I've got the Docker desktop installer. I will download and install the latest Python, and I will also download and install the latest VS Code. I've done this before, you don't need to see it. So make sure your WSL, your Windows subsystem for Linux, is up to date. I just remembered that with Python, there is actually a couple of extra components that we might want to check are up to date. We want to upgrade pip. Which is already done. The technical library, that's done. And hvplot. Okay, they're all done. Next, I'm going to start Docker Desktop. And there's a couple of images on here that I'm going to completely remove. Let's see if we can delete the containers first. Now we're going to try and delete the images. There we go. Okay. You can probably get away with just pulling a fresh image, but I've been doing all sorts of experimenting with my PC, so I'm just going to rub out all the images and reinstall the original. Create my folders, Freqtrade, FT user data. Let's shift right click and PowerShell FT user data. Link to the source. We pull the image. Now we'll make sure that the user is correct. You'll notice that now we get a warning that version is obsolete in Docker Compose. I'll come back to that in just a minute. Let's finish off by setting up some of the defaults. API username. I'm just going to call it FQ and the password FQ for now. We're only on demo settings. So over here we've got Docker Compose, we've got all the folders, we've got the config, and we've got a sample strategy. Let's just give it a quick test. docker compose up. If you're not using Docker Desktop, then it's docker-compose, I believe. Okay, things are happening. It appears to be working. Let's give it a quick test in our browser. Let's go for localhost 8080. Yay! We can log in. Bot name is Freqtrade. Username and password is FQFQ. Zero of 3 trades. No obvious error messages. So it all appears to be working just fine. So let's come back over to our PowerShell window. We can Control-C. There we go. Control-C and Docker compose down to finish that. Next, I am going to copy into our FT user data our own compose file, our own config file, and our sample strategies. Oh, and I also create a folder called databases because I do like to keep my databases all in one place. So if you remember, we made some changes to our Docker Compose file. So I'm going to open this with Visual Studio. Let's open the folder. There we go. So, Docker Compose. We were getting a warning about this, version 3. That's not actually needed anymore, nor the 3 dashes at the beginning. So we can just have it start straight with services. We can remove a lot of the text. And for the databases, we can put in that extra folder of databases. That means next time we run our program, these won't appear here, they will appear in databases. Not necessary, but I like it tidy, otherwise I end up with a long list of databases here. The other thing worth noting is that Docker now says do not call it Docker Compose. It is now simply called Docker and YAML. Okay. Now, our old compose file, we had bot1, which referred to skeleton. Oh, I just noticed a typo. So let's put that in our Docker file. I left this line commented out, Freqtrade develop. I did find a bug which was solved by going to the newest image, but I'm going to leave it on there for now. And let's correct that spelling. There we go. What else? We need the strategy, don't we? Where was my skeleton strategy? Let's put that in there. And the config file, what changes did we make to config? This is the original config. And this is the config that I left you with. We'd changed a few settings. We put the API server at the top. Remember to put this in. That can avoid some headaches. The IP address is 0, port 8080. The exchange, we've just got a list. I believe I sorted it by volume and chose like 20. Static pair list, this is all in order. So that's for the original bot. Over in our compose file, my config file is called skeleton. I haven't brought that over. There it is. So next to our config, we've got a skeleton config file, which, talk about lazy, bot name skeleton, add config file is the original config file. So we're going to overwrite the name and all the other settings are the same. Very useful for a comparison. So what happens if I turn this on? Some days, the new name of the file is not docker.yaml, it is compose.yaml. Let's try it again. There we go. So bot1 and bot Freqtrade are being executed. I do not see any major errors. Let's go over to here, add a new bot, skeleton on port 81, FQFQ. So I tracked down my appalling typing and spelling. Let's control that and try it again. So we removed the containers. We've started again. Now let's see if we can. There we go. Got to watch out for the spelling, folks. This one has logged me out for some reason. So we should just log in again. Now if we go over to dashboard, we should see 2. Yes. And the changes that we made are up and running. Skeleton is already made, 26 cents profit. Whoa. So everything is working fine. We are back to where we were. So I just want to have a quick look at the chart and make a few comments. You can see on the chart, I prefer the trade view. We have our pairs. We have Bitcoin versus USDT, and rather cool, we can see entry points and we can see exit points, which actually coincide, so that's a rather useless strategy. Let's go over to here, choose this one, and go back to the charts. Now our skeleton strategy is very simple. There's just simply a stop loss, and our entry signal is if the volume is greater than 0, which it obviously will be for the pairs that we have chosen. So every candle is going to be an entry point. We don't have any exit signals because we've decided to go simply by trailing stop. So we don't see any exit points yet, but we do see that every candle has an entry point. The longer we leave this running, the more it will. Yeah, I don't like the look of this one. Might remove that one. How about doggy? Okay. We can leave this running and open a new PowerShell window because I'm going to try some backtesting. As this is only a demo, I will actually stop those from running. So backtesting. We first of all need to download some data. So let's do docker compose run, remove it when we're done. We need to mention a bot, so we'll just go with the default. Then the instruction, download data, time range. Let's do this year from the 1st of January to today, which is we're getting close to the end of May. And the time frame, I'm going to grab 1 minute and 5 minutes so that I can mess around with shorter time frames. Unknown flag. Again with the typos, sorry about that. Okay. This is going to take a while, so I'm going to go and make myself a cup of coffee. While I wait for this to complete, I'm going to upload the compose.yaml config skeleton files to somewhere online and put the link in the comments below, in the description below. Here is the link to all those files that I have referenced. I will put it in the description because typing this in will be a total pain. I did just use a rather useful website called shortul.at to make this. That should link to the same place. Okay, the downloads of the data has finished. We can continue. I want to backtest my skeleton. So we're going to type in docker compose run, or just delete what we've already got. Instead of download data, now we are going to, well, just to prove a point, you can refer to your other bot if you really want to. Don't think it makes much difference at this stage. And the instruction now is backtesting. Let's choose a time range. Let's go for April. So 0401 to 2024. April the 10th. We'll just do 10 days for now, because this can be a bit time consuming. The strategy, we're going to choose skeleton. We have to include the config user underscore data. Oops. We have to include the config file, which is in a subfolder, skeleton.json. What else? Sorry about that, the phone was ringing. Backtesting, time range, strategy, config file. A couple of extra settings. We shall put export as none. We don't need that at the moment. The cache I'm going to set to none because we're fiddling. And most importantly, the time frame itself. Let's do it on the 5-minute time frame. And off we go. Yay, no typos. And there we go, a quick back test. Our skeleton strategy has made a total profit of -$80. And the market actually went down 3%. Our average profit went down 0.8, total down 0.7. So our wonderful skeleton strategy is a loser. But it works. That's the point of doing this. Now, just for the fun of it, let's try the hyperoptimization and see if the program itself can come up with better values for the stop loss and the trailing stop. So docker compose run, remove it when we're done, bot 1. The instruction this time is HyperOptimisation. HyperOpt. Again, time range. Same as before. April the 1st to April the 10th. Strategy skeleton. Config will be user data skeleton.json. And some different settings this time. What kind of optimization? So the instruction, the switch is hyperopt loss, and I'm going to go for only profit hyperopt. Hyperopt loss. There's a few of these you can choose from, and they're all explained in the manual. Time frame, which is abbreviated to -I. Let's put that as 5 minutes. Number of iterations. How many times is the computer going to run through different settings? I'm going to put it on 500 for now. Now, my computer has a 20-core processor, but if I use all 20 cores, it overheats and shuts down. So I'm going to restrict the number of cores to 16 of the possible 20. And last but not least is the important setting of spaces. We are going to try various values for the number of trades. And we're going to try various values for stop loss and for trailing. Off we go. And of course there's a typo somewhere. Well, that took an embarrassingly long time to discover that I spelled stop loss incorrectly. Yay. And off it goes. It's going to iterate 500 times using various random values for the number of trades, the value for stop loss, and the value for trading. After it's done that a few times, it will start narrowing down on those values. The details of this are in the manual, which links to other places. I'm not going to go into that now, simply it does a pretty good job. As you can see, it is trying assorted values, and now it is beginning to improve on the random values that it's chosen. Obviously this is going to take a while, so time to go and see what the boss wants. Yay, it's finished. So what can we learn from this? Our best is an average profit of 2%, a win rate of 24%, but it did make a total profit of 6%. Well, that's better than the -7 that we had originally. Down here we can actually see what the details of what happened. Average duration is 2 days, so having it on 5 minutes might not be the best. New values for stop loss is 4.5%, and the trailing stop is 24% and 33%. And the max number of trades is 6. If you have a look in your Freqtrade folder, you'll find next to the strategies is a new file called skeleton.json. Let's open that. The strategy name, various other settings we can fiddle with, and the new values. This will be used by default. Meaning, if we now run our backtest with our config skeleton and our strategy skeleton on the 5-minute time frame and just run it again, instead of our values of -10% in the strategy file, the new values in this extra file will be used. Meaning that our backtest is different. Okay, debugging this will be one of your main skills. So down here, I was not getting the values that I expected. Max open trades equals 10. That is incorrect. Max open trades should be 6. So let's scroll up and look at the logs. Everything is correct in our backtest. Our skeleton config file is red, which also loads the default config file. So we have max open trades equals 10. Down here we have get information from the strategy file and our new extra strategy file. but the problem is max open trades. So let's have a look. Our original strategy doesn't say anything about trades. Our new file, strategy file, says max open trades is 6, which means if we're using max open trades in the strategy, we shouldn't have it in the config file. Put it in one place or the other. If you have both, then you can see there will be problems. Now that we've removed that, let's go back to our backtesting command. Give it one more shot. There we go. Max open trades is 6. It's clearly using our new additional strategy file, and we've actually made a profit of 6%, which is pretty damn good, seeing as the market went down by 3%. Clearly, hyperopt and backtesting should be done over sensible time frames. Personally, I found longer the better. What happens if we run our strategy for the whole month? Okay, so the market went down by 25% and our profit went down by 10%. We're getting better. Last thing I will say on this, you can keep both files, both strategy files, or you can copy your values back into your strategy. Depends on your own methodology, how many duplicates of these files you want to keep. For simplicity, I'm actually going to copy these values. So the stop loss is going to be, instead of 10%, it's going to be 4.5%, and the trailing stop 24 and 39. 24 and 34. Just going to round it up. And the max number of trades I'm going to put back into the config file because I like to adjust it with the amount of money that I'm gambling. But it means that I can delete that file and just to make sure, let's put it back on a 10-day test just to make sure that it's all working as intended. So that was backtesting with some hyper-optimization.